what you do also is a point where you get to a social aspect of giving back and being able to do so much more. And the next story you're going to hear is about actually giving back to community and giving back socially to what you're doing. So please welcome to the stage Andrew Thomas. Hi, big fella. How you going? I'll get a hug from you. Andrew and I have also been working together for a while. Andrew is actually one of my mentors in our program, so he assisted and helped out the New South Wales people when we were doing our last year, which is pretty good and amazing. Now, let's just start straight up with the Housing Humanity. What is that about and where does it come from?
Housing Humanity, that came from me working on Town Hall Station, doing the refurbishment in there, and about 2 years ago. And I happened to see this homeless guy every night huddled in the corner of the St Andrew's Cathedral. And one night it was absolutely pouring with rain, and he was wrapping himself up in newspaper, and the rain was coming in sideways, and I couldn't stand it. I went to my car and got a tarp and said, "Here, mate, use the tarp." And I heard somebody just say, "Oh yeah, everyone needs a roof over their head, don't they?" In a smart ass sort of way. And I thought, wow, that's sort of didn't gel with me. And so we became friends. And this guy was actually a very interesting character. He had gone through a filthy divorce in Adelaide, found hatred. Life stepped on him. He went to made his way to Melbourne. Then eventually made his way to Sydney, and he lived his life on the streets. And he was the happiest person living on the streets. And so when he got to find out what I was doing, he would go to the library every day and he would research, and he couldn't wait for me to come back and tell me what his events were for the day. So it kind of started with there. And then another incident happened when I was in San Francisco, and I helped a homeless person over there. So this is kind of a fledgling thing that's been in the back of my mind. It's kind of growing now. I've helped a wife or a single mum and her daughter in a violent domestic situation. I put them up in one of my properties just to give them a little bit of respite, and fortunately the husband found out where she was, and we had to sort of move them on. So it's just in its early days, but I can sort of feel something along those lines of helping out homeless. Everyone deserves a roof over their head, whether it just be a plastic tarp or whether it be a tiled roof or whatever. So that's sort of where I'm starting with that.
It's a good start, isn't it? For you, yes.
Thanks.
Now, you've come a long way, you've done a lot of stuff, and you've had a lot of ideas and got caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, absolutely. And that music's very appropriate. Highway to Hell. Pre-1995, I spent many years in and out of jail, and I know what you're thinking. There was nothing to do with being a crim. I'd invented a light fitting, a maximum security light fitting, and spent my years as an entrepreneur and as a young sparky moving into the lighting world. And I won contracts with corrective services and started outfitting all the jails. And I think it was about 25 when I was sitting down with the Minister for Corrective Services. And I felt embarrassed because I'm just this young whippersnapper and I'm sitting down with ministers. So that kind of started my career. And I built that up. I had some patents and a lot of IP, about 28 registered designs, and slowly built the business up. And then come 1995, I just knew, I had this gut feeling, we were going to win the Olympic Games in Sydney. And so while I was overseas, I happened to notice that all through Europe, they used giant LED screens everywhere for their advertising, all around the sports stadiums, or everywhere. We didn't have that here, and I could just see LED screens projecting the images of the Olympic Games out to Sydney. So I researched the world, found the best technology, signed up an agency agreement, brought it to Australia. And it took me about 3 years, but I got the first DA approval in Australia for a giant outdoor LED screen on a major highway to sell advertising and also promote the Sydney Olympic Games. And just interesting on that, one of the very first ads I did, and it's actually pretty heart-wrenching, was Kwani Diak. If you've just heard the news, they've just found the murderer that abducted that young girl. She was my very first ad. We did because I had, I didn't think I was going to get emotional.
And I can tell you he's not nervous. The two things he's already started talking about is bringing the emotion out.
Yeah. So thanks, Ian. Yeah, so because I had relationships with the police department and missing persons, that was one of the very first ads. It touched my heart. It's one of the first ads that I did, and I can't believe all these years later, this week they've actually found the murderer. So heart-wrenching to sit across in my boardroom table to see this family and see what they're going through. So if you think you're having a hard day, boy, this family, they killed me. And I couldn't do that anymore. I could not. I just couldn't do the missing person stuff. That just killed me. So yeah.
Now you had advice from different lawyers and what about protection and patents and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And
So as you know, running a business, it's just not this beautiful straight, easy ride. It's full of roller coasters and ups and downs and hills and everything. So 2004, we went through the Olympic period. My billboards, wow, what a cash cow. They were pulling in $42,000 a month in revenues. They were just brilliant. But I learnt the Olympic movement, when that comes to town, it just sucks so much money out of countries. And then when it moves on, it just leaves this big hole. And that's what happened to me. Advertising revenues plummeted, went virtually to zero. Then during the course of that, I'd actually designed and developed and started manufacturing a street pole system, very similar to what you see down Main Street of Sydney. Whole other story. But I'd signed a $6 million contract with an advertising company to replace 3,000 poles across Australia. And they were going to have an LED flag on the side with advertising with the street nameplates on them. So, a year into that contract, I'd put 30 poles in the ground. I was supposed to have 300 in the ground. I had factories, I had workers, wages, costs. It was just mounting up. And I went and got some legal advice. And the legal advice was to sue them for breach of contract. And so, that didn't sit well with me, because when you fire a legal shot across someone's bow, you've got to be ready to back it up. And that's, and I just didn't feel comfortable. I had a very good relationship with this company, and I then had to go in and, load the shotgun and aim it at them. And so, the first round of advice was to sue them for breach of contract. So we did, and I had probably the biggest and the best lawyers in Australia. And it went pear-shaped. It was just horrific. After about 3 weeks, I was getting bills, $50,000, and we hadn't even gone to court. They were just arguing over words and sentences. And Dibner talks about that full stop in the sentence. My God, that full stop cost me about $12,000. And so this went backwards and forwards, and I was just getting worse and worse and worse in my mentality, the negativity that was coming in. I was getting hatred, and it was just a nightmare. Ultimately, then what happened was I became insolvent. I couldn't pay my bills. And so I'd gone back into the lawyers and said, guys, this is killing me. I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. We've got to change tack. I'm insolvent. So, that's 10 years jail. I'm not going to jail. I've been there for 10 or 15. I'm not going to jail. So let's make the business insolvent. Let's close it up. And so the advice was, let's wind the business up. You'll be able to cancel all your contracts, and you'll be able to retain your business and go again. Beautiful. Okay, that's what I did. They appointed an administrator, or I appointed an administrator. We went into a deed of arrangement with all of my creditors. That was a very humbling experience. They all stood up. There's only about 10, but they all stood up, and they were all my suppliers, and said, look, we've known these guys for years. Whatever happens, what will be, will be. So I went through this administration process, and administrator, long story short, said, look guys, if you get 50 grand, we'll be able to pay off the lawyers, we'll be able to clear your business, everything's fine. Great. Went back, got $50,000, mortgaged my home, get borrowed money, put it in, and went in on the Friday to the meeting. Congratulations boys, you got your business back. Went and partied. First lesson in life, don't party too early. Far out. Come in on Monday and sign the documents. So we came in on the Monday. Went to sit down, there's nobody in the law firm's office. We've ushered into the boardroom and the phone rings. There's a conference call and we pick it up. Oh, Daniel, shouldn't mention names, Daniel. He said, oh, look, there's a bit of a problem. We said, what do you mean there's a problem? He said, oh, look, we actually got a better offer to sell your business and we've decided to accept it. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, the company that you sued, they offered 100 grand for your business. And bang.
Overnight, that's what happens, and and that's the best advice that was getting. So, having sat then in a Dipner one day, you realised that you'd made some mistakes. One of them was the asset protection and getting some good advice.
Yeah, that was a light bulb moment.
You'd made other mistakes. You'd bought stuff stage 5.
Incredible, yeah. After all that, I went into depression 2 years. The negativity that was in my head was incredible. And so for 2 years, I call it my wallowing in the mud period. And I went from there I went back to being a sparky. And I was lucky that I had a partner and we'd won some work up in Queensland and went up there. And I was working with these guys who were doing a massive land development and got to know them. And they were cranking out these spec homes and making money hand over fist. I've got to get on this. I need something. I didn't have super. Everything was gone. And so I decided to buy a block of land. I can do this. I've been around building sites. I know what's going on. This is easy. I bought in stage 5. The market crashed and I lost 42 grand. And so I learned a valuable lesson out of buying in stage 5. The market dropped about 19 or 20% in Queensland. It was about 2006.
Because your story around the education component's not that good either. Because you joined, we won't say but you joined 2 different programs at 10k a pop in property education, and they both went broke within 6 months of you joining. Yep.
I'd left Queensland, driving home, thinking I've got to continue this. I'm never going to not have a mentor again because, during my outdoor advertising and billboard years, I was always told, ask and you'll receive. So I asked, and I actually had one of Australia's wealthiest businessmen as my mentor, and I was so grateful for that time. I mean, you talk about owning jumbo jets, not one, but a fleet, owning port facilities. It was just incredible that time, so I was very, very grateful. And so they were the lawyers that I used.
So you turn up at Dipner event and go, oh, another education event, but as soon as you got in there, you went...
Yeah, look, again, I did this education. I was attracting such an... And I look back now and reflect on the thought process that I was going through at that time, and I deserved it. I had this attitude that, education, man, who wants to pay for education? I was just so negative, and of course I attracted that. I spent $18,000 in education, the two businesses went broke. So one day my sister said, you've got to go and see this lady, Dipner. Not interested. So I did anyway. I dragged myself along, and with 5 minutes I heard the word asset protection and then tax minimisation, and it was like a nightmare. And it just resonated. It was incredible. But it was life-changing.
So on that day you worked out, you'd bought off plan, you'd cross-securitised on your properties.
Yeah, my education said you've got to put it in your own name, cross-securitise, and then when you keep your land tax down, then you put it in your kids' names, and then you keep your land, and you just keep going and going and going. Well, that guy went broke.
Yeah. And so you'd gone through the depression and you'd gone up, and it was just another conference, but for you it meant the asset protection was there, you had the ability to equity, and for you the USA was something that interested you.
Absolutely, yeah. I was very lucky that my daughter was accepted into a student exchange program into Colorado at 16, and she went over there and lived there for 6 months, and then and we reciprocated, and then during the course of that, I actually became the president of the committee. I enjoyed that time so much. It was almost a healing process, but I enjoyed that time. The committee was in the red for about $15,000 when I started. When I exited and retired from there after 7 years, they were about $48,000 in the positive. So I completely turned the whole process around. And one of my proudest moments was winning out of all the councils across Australia. I won the best overall youth program, which, very, very proud of.
Pretty amazing.
And so that was, again, part of part of my journey, which is, yeah.
So you realised after joining that the properties that you did have were costing you, and you decided to go secondary dwelling and did some HMO conversions. I mean, you were the initial...
Yeah, well, actually, just go back to leading into the USA. So from there, I'd been travelling to Colorado, and I got to meet Mayor of Denver and town planners, and sister city programs are all about extending the hand of friendship to people of different communities and races, and so that resonated with me, and so off I went. So I felt very comfortable with going to America, and man, I was over there when the GFC hit, and the looks on people's faces, the despair that ripped through that country was pretty incredible. But to me, I could just see opportunity, but I couldn't show that to these poor people that are losing their home.
I mean, they can walk away from their loans at least and build a credit
over
rating.
there, you just hand your keys and walk away.
Yeah.
Here you lose your shirt and your back,
you lose
everything. They
everything.
take it, they rape you.
So did a conversion on these things, got them running and up and positive geared. You obviously saw the trust structure stuff. You set up a business plan. All of a sudden, you're positive. You started becoming a better, positive thinking person.
Absolutely,
And
the
start pulling out of
the changes that I went through, the meditations. I had a holistic approach. But prior to all this, I was just money driven. I was around people who were extremely wealthy, and I just wanted to be them. And it just didn't work for me. I now realise that, and the last 2 weeks of reflection has allowed me to see all this. And so I had the wheel of life, and each part of those areas is so important to keep a balance. If you've got a balance in your wheel of life, you have a very fruitful and enjoyable and fantastic life. So I learned all about that. I learned about meditation, the hero's journey, a compelling life, IWAM. If any of you have the IWAM and seen the new one, the Michelle, that's fantastic. Yeah, so your reticulating activating system, what the hell was that? But now I know. The things that you wish for, you will get. The things that you think of, you'll get, and sometimes they're negative, and you've got to push those aside. Yeah,
so you got a Western Sydney place that you did the secondary dwelling, you got it painted, and then some of the locals decided they needed to do a mural on the wall?
Yeah, first day, got the graffiti on there, so that was pretty cool.
Repaint. You turned the other property into a HMO, and this is where you
turned
help
that
out,
into a HMO.
Yeah, different people doing different things. So you've got a $33,000 turnaround from where it was negative to positive. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the real deals. You go over to Pittsburgh. This is in 2013. The Australian dollar is at $1.09, and your buying power is good over there. So
absolutely.
So Verica has gone down in value. We're worth more than they are per dollar, which is hardly ever happens. And you go over and you go, there's potential. So you buy this one.
Yeah. So Timpner has her equivalent over in America, and I met all the people over there. And this was my first property that I bought. And it was a little gem. It was on about 2 acres of land, and I picked that up fully renovated for $45,000.
So you've picked it up at a fairly low price.
Yeah.
And that's US 45, so you probably pick it up for 42, 43 grand.
Yeah.
And you go over there, and the person, someone passed away, and their son's selling this property. It's 2 acres, and you pick it up for 45, but there's a little
kicker, a little bonus. Yeah, on the other side of the property was this, and where that little grassy knoll was, that was a lot of bush, and where the road goes around to the car there was a lot of scrub. But the father had passed away, the son owned it. He had no idea that was on the title. So that was so
you effectively ended up with 2 titles. You bought 1 rental property, but ended up with 3 rental properties because that's a duplex.
And we split that into a duplex. That rents for I think about $1,600 a month.
Can you see that up to a point in time for Andrew, there was a whole around an amount of negativity that happened, become part of the network, sit around, and I'm not saying that we're a cult. Well, I'm not saying that. And all of a sudden things start to change for you and things start to happen to the positive, which is a great thing. So this one here, you got a total cash flow out of that one of $6,000, and that was, you bought this as rehab. So you've got, you paid 130, so they're worth, so you paid 45, say, and they're worth $173,000 Australian, just out of a 45K purchase. I reckon that's pretty good, hey? Now over there you develop a really good relationship with this particular guy in Pittsburgh, and you see each other quite a lot.
Yeah, we've now established a very good friendship. I can now afford to take my family over there once a year and have a holiday, and he comes out here, and so we've got a very good relationship and great family, great environment. I love it over there. Yeah.
So you pick this one up.
Yep.
You know, you pick it up for US $31,000 about the same time, and it rents for $7.90 a month. We've got some figures at the end so you can see what that means. And you know, simply the Australian dollar moving. So if I went over and I took back then $110 over to the US and left it in a bank account over there, if they charged me no charges, and I waited till today, that $1.10 would turn into probably $1.30, $1.40, $1.50, right? Because the Australian dollar dropped out from the US market. And that's effectively what Andrew's done. He's gone over and he's bought a property on Australian dollars when the Australian dollar was strong, and then it dropped out in Australian dollars. When he brings that back, he's now virtually got an increase of 30%, just without even the property increasing, but the property price has increased as well. So this one's the next one you buy?
Yeah, this is the next one, and I've now managed to beta test finance over there. I've been approved to get finance, and so I refinanced my little dual lock property and bought this. And this was it's like a little terrace house, and kind of think of it like if you're from Sydney, it's in Newtown, that close to the city CBD. You can see a roadway there in the top right-hand corner. You drive out of my little car park. That carport, actually, we're going to turn that into a garage, and that'll be rented for $50 each side a month. So that's in the planning process at the moment. You drive out, go 100 metres down the road, there's the on-ramp to the freeway, across the bridge, and you're in the city. And on the other side of that bridge, why I bought this, on the other side of that bridge, the second biggest movie studio is now being approved and will be constructed outside of Hollywood. And so that's a bit of an equity play as well. On the other side is Pepsi's headquarters. So I don't think it's going to lose. So
you bought 5 properties in the US and they're all going really well. You help us out with our mentoring. One of the students in our mentoring program has signed a building contract with someone for a secondary dwelling. That building company goes pear-shaped. Their quote was low, and that's probably why they went out of business. And you've stepped in and said to them they were going to handle it themselves.
Yeah.
You didn't think that they could handle it, see it going on, so you stepped in and said, I'll do it for the same price.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I couldn't stand, this is the Luke and Steph story, I couldn't stand to see these guys. They were newbies, they were just starting out, bought their first property, and you know, things don't always go to plan. And I could see that this was headed for disaster. So I stepped in and gave them a little bit of advice. And I brought my team over, and for 7 weeks we just got stuck into it and completely renovated it for them.
So you had to pack up joists, you had to put a firewall in, so because they were putting a secondary dwelling within the house, they had to put a firewall in. There was all these things that were taking forever. And for you went through, you were stealing their coffee.
Funny, it's a bit of an in-joke. The coffee story was Steph is
she's like Brad. She's a
bikini model.
She does fitness competitions.
Yeah. So she was going through a training, and she said, "Oh, look, just help yourself to the food and everything. You know, tradies we've opened up, and there's whey powder and nutrients." And I go, "What?" Yeah, okay. So I've never eaten that many bloody meat pies and sausage roll in a job in my life. But anyway, she said, "Oh, help yourself to the coffee as well." And so we found she left a jar of coffee, but we found the nice cappuccinos and the espressos, and we drank $80 worth of coffee in 2 days, and she hit the roof. 2 weeks later, I found a stash. I was doing some work, and there was a secret stash in the wardrobe. And I took a photo. I said, "I found your coffee."
So
can I just go back to the other one too? The last day, that hole in the ceiling. That's where I started the renovation. There was a linen press there, and I stripped that all out, and there was a large hole there. And as I was walking out the door, feeling very proud with myself, smoke detector went off. Kidding me. So reset it, went off again, down to the wholesale, I got another one, changed it, went off again, can't be right. And then I noticed that the loop With rooming homes, you've got to have all the smoke detectors linked. And I noticed that 2 of them weren't going. So up in the roof I get, crawling through the roof, and I noticed a wire just sort of running across the roof, and it hadn't been connected. So I'm crouching in there, and I'll just get it, and I'll lasso it, and I grabbed hold of the end of it. It was live, and it blew me back down through the roof. So that was the result. I end up back where I started. The next day was staging day, so of course I'm there at night time.
So they bought the property for $570. They had a 6-month delay in it. That you actually, in the end, donated $6,000 of your time that you funded, and a few extra costs in there. And they ended up making about $100,000 just by you helping me out, because you could, and you put your team around there. So
that's right.
Thank you on behalf of the community. So what are your learnings? What's your advice?
Empowerment through education. This says it all. Actions change everything. Seek help, support, advice. Don't be afraid to ask. Giving back, that was something I'd never experienced, and to do that with Luke and Steph, man, I just got such a buzz out of that. I remember when she rang me and we had a conference call with Luke and Steph, and we all cried. I wasn't expecting to make any money. I was just expecting to get them out of trouble, get them rented. And the other good thing about that too was I introduced them to my agent, and within 3 days we had 3 rooms rented. And that will go from about $400 a week to $1,300 a week in rent. So, giving back. Yeah, we all cried. I'm in the car, I'm looking at people, I'm bawling my eyes out, and they're looking, what's wrong with him?
So as far as the situation for you, we've got all those properties that have come in, so you've got more income coming in. So tell us your situation from where you were to where you are now.
I was cross-securitized, $13,000 negatively geared. Life was pretty ordinary, hated education, to loving education, loving all you guys, enjoying your stories, having fantastic mentors. My whole persona, my whole way of thinking has changed, and it's taken a long healing process. And I could never understand why all these horrible things were happening to me, because I was always this motivated entrepreneur. And it just, a meditation day one day a couple of years ago, and we went back to our childhood. And I had a fantastic childhood, and I'm looking around in people in the audience, and some of the horrific things that people have done to children. And so I couldn't understand it. So it's taken me a long time. And with the help of Ian and Dipner and all the team and all you guys, just talking with you guys, it's been a healing process.
And how's your portfolio position?
Fantastic.
Tell us where you're at.
Oh, now I'm up to $60,000 in cash flow, so I can afford to have a day off here or there now, which is really good. The portfolio, I've had a $684,000 increase in equity, and that's not including the PPR. That's just mega money. So incredible turnaround.
Amazing. Just quickly, a last word around, total. If you were sitting in the audience, what would you say to people?
If I was sitting out there looking at me, I'd say, give yourself an uppercut, you idiot. Why have you spent all this time absorbing this negativity? But power of hindsight is a pretty amazing thing. I'm up here now telling you guys that you're on a journey. Everyone has a story, everyone has their own journey, and it's the story that's in your head that's the important one. That little man or woman in there that's telling you all these negative things. I can't find a deal, it's too hard, all those negative things. Get rid of it. Put a broom down there on the ground, take a step over it and say, right, I'm going to make a change. And my journey is still continuing. So I was always told, ask and you'll receive. So I'm going to ask for your vote. I want your vote. Why not? Thanks, mate. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, mate.
Yeah,
Thanks.
appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.